Hey there. Welcome to the live show. Appreciate you spending some time with me tonight. And we're going a little earlier than we normally would because I know that you are online more so at this hour than you are at the later time. But I'm excited to um, dive in tonight to our subject. Obviously, one of the biggest stories right now across the country is that the company 23andMe is has declared bankruptcy, ousted the CEO, and we're breaking it down tonight. Now, I want to start off the live today with just a question for you because it's important when you have a company that is in biomed that does a lot of business with people, with customers, and they have customer related data that's super sensitive that we consider the fallout for what happens when these companies go belly up. And so tonight we're going to talk about that when it comes to 23andMe because they're not just collecting anything. They're collecting DNA data, ancestry data, and there is a lot of personal information flying right now out there. So I want to set the stage of the show tonight by asking you a question. And here's the question I want you to think about. What if I told you that your genetic information would be sold to the highest bidder? How would you feel about that? You'd probably be pretty ticked off, right? Probably more than ticked off because you're like, who's invading my personal information and how do I get it stopped? Well, that's what we're going to dive into tonight. There is explosive news when it comes to the 23andMe bankruptcy, and we're going to dive into a story about a Canadian company that actually had customers' data and what ended up happening with that customers' data because it's relevant and who knows exactly where and what's going to ultimately happen with the 23andMe data. But one thing we do know is we kind of look to the past to see what could potentially be the case. And, there are so many US privacy laws that need to be shored up and bolstered that haven't been. So let's begin. So on March 24th, 2025, 23andMe filed for bankruptcy, and the CEO, Anne Wojcicki, steps down um, with the plan to get bidders to buy the company herself. That was her goal. She stepped down, try to get a bidding group, which includes like her ex-husband, and buy the company herself. But the bankruptcy is actually looming right now. Now, the company claims right now, despite the bankruptcy, that there's been no change in how they have handled the data to this point. Frankly, I'm a little concerned myself because I've used 23andMe. 23andMe was recommended to me by a very trustworthy source um, of mine who also used it themselves. And it's concerning, especially if you've used the service, just trying to put a nail in to where your data actually might be. Now, this is the risk that all companies who gather data on customers have, but even more so, of course, when you're in like the health space. Obviously, one thing to think about is, well, what do I do with the fact that I have customer data that needs to be protected? How can I actually manage this, moving forward? Well, the reality is that, every company has to go through their own internal auditing process about what they need to do when it comes to how they manage their company data. 23andMe is just happens to be in the crosshairs, but we're going to learn a lot as this thing unfolds. So here's some key context, though, as we get into this that I want you to think about when it comes to 23andMe, just so we have a little historical context about the company themselves. So 23andMe never really turned a profit. So that's the first key insight that you should know. The second thing is that in 2023, you might remember that they had a massive data breach. and they have about 15 million customers. So about half of their customers, roughly 7 million customers, were affected by the data breach. And that resulted in a $30 million settlement. Um, but there was over 15 million of their customers whose genetic information was actually stored online. So I'd like you to imagine that as one of the millions of customers they have, your genetic information is actually on, you know, online for anyone, well, in their database, for anyone to hack in and to take. But like, this has already happened. This company has already had data breach issues. And I know the question from the beginning is, would you trust a company with your DNA? And then the data breach happened. And the question now is, now that the company is going bankrupt and looking for a sales partner, would you trust a company going forward with your data, right? Like, because if the current CEO is unsuccessful in her bid, in her attempt to acquire the company, that means that all the privacy data that has been stored and that is currently in the possession of 23andMe is going to go to potentially someone that you have no idea of who it is. And the other thing too is that all that data that's on their servers that they have for their customers could go to a company who wins the bid, who you would never want your information personally to be with, because you would not want to be a customer of that company. So there's a lot of stake here to think about. Now, what I want you to wrap your head around something, which is the policy privacy breakdown. Like, what could actually happen? So, per 23andMe, customer data can be sold or transferred in the event of a bankruptcy sale. And here's the problem, though, is that policies can change at any time, because once the new owner takes possession of the company and they have their own policies surrounding data, and remember that the data for the customers, or even, the purchasers or the bidders for 23andMe, for the company, may not be anyone that may not be an American company. So you could have a foreign company come in, look to bid, and then win the bid and own the company. And now, not only is your data available to a new buyer who you did not intend for your data to go to, it's now available in a completely other country that may have, let's face it, worse privacy laws than we have right here. So the new owner, the new rules. And so there is real risk here when it comes to customers' data. And this is not without precedence. This is not the first time this has happened. There's been cases in the past where there has also been customer data that was purchased after the fact, after a company went bankrupt, and the customers had no idea that their information was actually leaked. And this happened to a Canadian company called NCIX. Back in 2017, they filed for bankruptcy, and they had 13 terabytes of customer data that ended up being sold in a public hardware auction. So this company had no idea that their customer data was actually available to be sold. And I want to share an article with you about this. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want you to start thinking about why it's important to safeguard your data, why it's important to remove permissions for use of your data if a company goes belly up. All right. So I have an article that I'm going to share with you now that I was looking at. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So here it is. All right. It says a security researcher has found customer and employee data belonging to one of Canada's biggest PC hardware retailers on servers put up for sale on Craigslist. You see that? Craigslist. So these servers were put up for sale on Craigslist. Literally the place where you go to buy a foot massager for $40 because you're too cheap to go to the store. Yes, and I'm talking about myself. Um, they had this customer data on Craigslist. It says the data believed to go back as far as 15 years belongs to NCIX, a PC retailer that filed for bankruptcy and closed shop in December 2017. The massive privacy breach appears to have taken place after the retailer closed its stores last year and servers and retired old servers and employee workstations. It's unclear how these servers ended up advertised on Craigslist, but they did. Travis Doring of Privacy Fly discovered an ad for 2 servers in August. During the course of the month, Doring met with the seller, an Asian man from Richmond, British Columbia, who introduced himself under the name Jeff. Doring says he made it clear from the beginning that he was interested in acquiring data stored on those servers put up for sale for 1,500 Canadian dollars or 1,150 US dollars. So think about this. This person who was trying to go after these servers that were being sold on Craigslist was specifically willing to pay just specifically for the data on that hardware. Now imagine that. Imagine that your data that you had given permission to the current company that went bankrupt to have is now stored to the tune of 13 terabytes on computers and servers that were sold to some random dude or someone who was inquiring on Craigslist for all of your information. It's pretty sick, right? Let's continue. So it says after several meetings, Doring says he discovered that the seller had access to many more NCIX servers and workstations than he initially advertised on Craigslist. It says Jeff claimed to have gained access to NCIX's former hardware after the company failed to pay a $150,000 bill for warehouse storage space and that he was helping the warehouse owner sell the equipment. None of this could be corroborated from any sources, but Doring did say Jeff had access to 300 desktop computers from NCIX's corporate offices and retail stores, 18 Dell PowerEdge servers, as well as at least 2 super micro servers running StarWin ISCSI software that NCIX had used to back up their hard disk. In addition, Jeff also granted Doring access to 109 hard drives, which had been removed from servers before auction, and one large pallet of 400 to 500 used hard drives from various manufacturers. On the various backup images and hard drives Doring accessed during his meetings with Jeff, he says he found personal data such as credentials, invoices, photographs of customers' IDs, bills, customer names, addresses, email addresses, phone numbers, IP addresses, and unsalted MD5 hash passwords, just to name a few. He also found a database table containing 258,000 payment card details stored in plain text, and another table containing 3.8 million customer orders. When companies shut down, they usually wipe servers to prevent unauthorized access to their old data. Companies also usually encrypt their data when creating backups. But Doring said data stored on all this equipment was not encrypted. So these people gave their credit cards to NCIX, who saved their credit card information and put it on a backup file in plain text, non-encrypted, which means all 16 digits were available in plain text, available to just be copied and pasted. Credit card details, which I assume included expiration dates, security codes, and zip codes, as well as IP addresses, email addresses, customer names, photo IDs, the works. Imagine that. So I just wanted to bring this story up. It's not relevant specifically to 23andMe, but what happens when a business goes bankrupt is that you don't know where that data is going to get transferred to. And specifically, if there's some carelessness associated with how data has been managed to this point, which is obvious because in 2023, 23andMe was hacked, and half their customer database, or just under half their customer database, was stolen, and they had to sell for $30 million. So that's a problem. So it's important, if you're watching this, for you to know that your data may not necessarily be safe because of this bankruptcy protection. Do they have the money to secure all the data that they have? And if you're a customer of 23andMe and you've given them, I mean, not just your email address, your name, and your credit card information, you've given them all that stuff plus your DNA. So that is almost, I mean, what else is there? That the only thing that you haven't given them, frankly, is a move-in bag with your clothes, and so that you can move into their house. If a thief really, really wants this information, if there's no safeguards, if the company that might buy 23andMe has lax security, then your data could be vulnerable to a number of institutions that you wouldn't want to have your data or your information. This is a very serious problem. It's potentially a very serious problem. So, because of the significant risk that's posed by by the bankruptcy and the type of data it is, the Attorney General of the state of California came out and urgently issued a customer alert pertaining to 23andMe. And I want to just show you what he said, and then we're going to see if I can delete my data. I'm going to do it live on air to see if I can delete my data. All right, so here's what the Attorney General said first. He said, it says, California Attorney General Rob Bonta today issued a consumer alert to customers of 23andMe, a genetic testing and information company. The California-based company has publicly reported that it is in financial distress and stated in security filings that there is substantial doubt about its ability to continue as a going concern. Due to the trove of sensitive customer data 23andMe has amassed, Attorney General Bonta reminds Californians of their right, and obviously this is generally speaking to anyone who's reading this, of their right to direct the deletion of their genetic data under the Genetic Information Privacy Act and California Consumer Privacy Act. Californians who want to invoke these rights can do so by going to 23andMe's website. California has robust privacy laws that allow consumers to take control and request that a company delete their genetic data, said Attorney General Bonta. Given 23andMe's reported financial distress, I remind Californians to consider invoking their rights and directing 23andMe to delete their data, and destroy any samples of genetic material held by the company. And then he gives a list of how you can do that. It says to delete genetic data from 23andMe, you can log into your account and personal information by taking the following steps. Log into the account, go to settings, scroll to the section labeled 23andMe data at the bottom of the page, click view next to 23andMe data, download your data. If you want a copy of your genetic data for personal storage, choose the option to download it to your device before proceeding. Scroll to the delete data section, click permanently delete data, confirm your request. You'll receive an email for 23andMe. Follow the link in the email to confirm your deletion request. And then it says to destroy your 23andMe test sample. If you previously opted to have your saliva sample and DNA stored by 23andMe but want to change that preference, you can do so from your account setting page under Preferences. To revoke permissions for your genetic data to be used for research, if you previously consented to 23andMe and third-party researchers to use your genetic data and sample for research, you may withdraw consent from the account settings page under Research and Product Consents. So he outlines the steps there. for anyone who's going into the 23andMe page to go in there and delete the data. So what I'm going to do live on the air is I'm going to see if I can delete my data to see if this works. So let's do it together. I'm going to log in first. And after I log in, I'm going to try to see if I can go in and delete everything I have and withdraw permission for my genetic data to be used. All right, I'm in. All right, so let me just share this. So here I'm into my account. And this is like my dashboard. And I'm just going to go to settings. Let's edit my privacy settings. Okay, I'm going to go back. Can't really see it. So I already didn't consent. See this? I did not consent to the individual data sharing consent. I did consent to the research consent document. So let's see if I can change this live on air here so you can see me change it. So I'm going to revoke my consent. Well, I gave that back in 2015. So there he goes. I hit the wrong thing. Sorry. So I've revoked my consent for my information to be used. So I wanted to start there before I deleted my data. I keep going back to this. Okay. So here, okay, I'm going to take this off screen real quick so I can enter in some of my personal information. But I'm going to delete this. I'm going to download my data first, and then I think, yeah, all right, let me get this. So I downloaded my ancestry data. I'm downloading my raw genetic data. So I'm submitting. You have to submit a request to get your raw data when you do it. And then now go back to settings. So when that comes in, I'll have it. And then I'm clicking in the section where it's specifically about 23andMe data. So I can show this part. So here at the bottom, when you kind of go into the section, it says data deletion cannot be reversed. You will permanently lose access to your reports, insights, profile, and any connections or data relatives that match you have established. You can delete your data and change your consents at any time. Says look at this. So it says what happens to my data if the company is sold or otherwise changes ownership. If the company does change ownership in the future, your data will remain protected under the 23andMe privacy policy unless and until you were presented with materially new terms with appropriate advance notice to review those change materials. It says account deletion impacts all your profiles in your account. So deleting your account will delete data for all profiles within your account. If you don't want to delete your data for your profiles, you can transfer a profile out of your account. Clicking the button below will submit your request to delete data for Micah Logan, that's me. And it says what will happen next. Once you submit your data deletion request, 23andMe will send an email to the email address linked in your 23andMe account asking you to confirm your request. Upon receiving your confirmation, 23andMe will process your request to delete your data and will no longer be able to sign in to your account. So it says clicking the delete data button below and then confirming the request through email closes it and deletes your 23andMe account. Personal information will be deleted in accordance with our privacy statement. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to go delete this now. It says, why are you requesting to delete your data? And I'm going to my response is just going to be due to the impending bankruptcy and the uncertain future of the company. I've decided to delete my data to prevent any potential further breaches of my personal information. So, I guess I don't have to lay it out too far for them or too much for them, but I'm deleting my data. I just don't trust that that if the new CEO, who's the CEO, doesn't get a hold of the company, and who knows what's going to happen. So that this could be a problem. So here it says, we've received your request to delete your data and have sent an email to the email address linked to your 23andMe account requesting your confirmation. Please locate this email and confirm your request, and your data deletion request will not be processed until we've received your confirmation. So I have to go to my email and check to see if my data is still there. So I'm going to pull up my email, and once I do, I'll show it to you so you can see kind of what the link looks like. And it looks like I think I got a notification. I think the email may have already come through. Actually, there it is. Okay. All right. So here it is. It says you've asked us to permanently delete your account. We received your request to permanently delete your 23andMe account and personal information for all profiles. Click the button below to confirm your deletion request, which will terminate your relationship with 23andMe and irreversibly delete your account and personal information. Please note that you may need to sign into your account if you're not currently signed in. If you wish to refer to this account deletion request in the future, please reference your account deletion request identifier with this number. It says once you confirm your request, we will immediately and automatically begin the deletion process, and you will lose access to your account. Once confirmed, this process cannot be canceled, undone, withdrawn, or reversed. If you participated in 23andMe research, your personal information will no longer be used in any future research projects. If you ask us to store your genetic samples, they will be discarded. 23andMe will only retain limited information for the establishment, exercise, or defense of legal claims, and as otherwise permitted or required by applicable law, and our genotyping labs are required to retain some additional information to comply with legal obligations. So they have their own specific obligations that they have to comply with. Now I will click permanently delete, which I just did. And so let's see what happens, where it takes me. Yeah, this is what I got. Oh, you can't see this. Okay, let me show you. So I got this thing here. So clicking that link in the email sent me to this. It says your data is being deleted. We've received your confirmation to delete your data. When the process of deleting your data, your account will no longer be accessible and will be deleted per your request. So hopefully that's it. And I don't have to bring them to court because they still have my information, which has been very publicly deleted at this point on this podcast. So if you have questions about this deletion, then I think you should try to do it yourself as well. So let's talk about the big picture for the data economy, because right now there is a data economy. And, you know, frankly, I have I'm very open about the fact that I have a newsletter. I talk about my newsletter all the time. And if you're a small business owner or entrepreneur, this is a great conversation for us to have about data privacy. It doesn't matter how small your business is, you have to get serious about protecting your customers' data. I had a security expert on actually very specifically talking about data, which I will post the link to in the description of this live show. And she was from Europe, but she like her point primarily was that ignorance is, even as a small business owner, is no excuse for you not understanding what your obligations as a business is for protecting and safeguarding your customers' data. As a business owner, you must know what is allowable, what is not allowable, and how you need to safeguard the information that you get from your customers. I have a newsletter, which you should subscribe to, that gets sent out every week on Tuesdays, and it contains 2 minutes of small business mastery tips, how you can transform your business operationally through sales, prospecting, processes, systems. It gets sent out every single Tuesday. Make sure you sign up. The link is also in the description. But anyways, I collect customers' data, but I use trusted sources that handle data collection in a way that is so crucially important. I think it's imperative that whenever you are collecting customer data, that you don't let that slip. There are so many loopholes when it comes to businesses and customer data. You see it all the time. If you've ever wanted to eat something and you picked up the phone and you ordered over the phone with your credit card, and when you went to go pick up the food, they never asked you for your ID and a copy of the card that you ordered with. See, there's a lot of stuff that's just done like in natural day-to-day business operations that nobody really thinks about. But the reality is that it's not necessarily according to the terms of safeguarding privacy and data for customers. So it's crucial that you read up on your country's laws. And I know that if you're watching or listening to this podcast and you're somewhere in the world, whether you're in, I get, listeners and watchers from the US, around the US, from Europe, from Asia, from Africa, who listen and watch my show. It's crucial that you know what your county, state, province, or whatever local jurisdiction and national jurisdiction, that you understand what the ramifications are for not doing so. And there's a big to do now when it comes to cybersecurity insurance, because customers are beginning to hold companies liable for the information that they do not secure. So I'm just saying, just a thought, right? Like it's important to be responsible that you understand what it is. So genetic data is not covered under HIPAA. So there's in the context of 23andMe. So it's clear that there are some big issues, but there are experts who are concerned about what's going on right now with the 23andMe situation. As like we kind of just walked through, it's a big problem. So let's just take a look at something I just saw on experts who are weighing in on this 23andMe situation.
With 23andMe, you can discover where in the world your DNA comes from.
Well, the at-home genetic testing company 23andMe lets customers know their family roots and some health information. But the company's finances have been rocking and possibly on the verge of bankruptcy. The stock lost 98% of its value.
And this has led the company's 15 million customers to question what happens to the DNA they submitted to the company. Well, experts say the personal information could be sold. KPRC2's Rilwan Balogan explains how the data could impact your health and life insurance.
Hey, we should first make it known 23andMe is not a health company, which means the genetic data collected isn't protected in the same way as health records. The company says in the fine print they can sell.
This is my great-grandfather.
Sandy Zimmer shares pictures of her family. Their family history is one reason why she decided to buy genetic testing 23andMe.
Both of my parents passed away from cancer. You want to see the likelihood of having something like that crop up.
But as news of the company's shaky finances make headlines,
23andMe is now 23andMe and insolvency. 23andMe on the verge of getting delisted now from the NASDAQ.
Zimmer worries about what happens with her personal data, and she has reason. According to James Langabeer, a professor of emergency medicine and biomedical informatics at the University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston.
My fear as someone involved in informatics is when you have a struggling company that is really unsure about how are we going to make cash flow, how are we going to make payroll.
What fear do you have with that? What do you think could happen?
What I see happening as a very likely case is people getting turned down for life insurance because they know things more about you than we knew.
The information isn't limited to the 15 million people the company touts as customers either.
There's a lot we can learn about people through their family members.
I didn't submit my information to this company, but maybe a cousin did. Could that data from my cousin some sort of way lead to me?
Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that other companies couldn't use your your family members' genetic data to draw conclusions about you, your family, and your community.
But there's something you can do. You can go to your account settings and request the company to remove your information, and they have 30 days to do so. But what they've already shared can't be recovered.
Yeah, the more you think about it, the more concerning it becomes. Basically, the thing that I was most concerned with was when he talked about it influencing getting health insurance, life insurance, because the DNA could say you could possibly have this even though maybe you never will.
How does that make you feel when you hear that?
Not too secure. Not too secure at all.
In a statement to KPRC2, 23andMe spokesperson says they're making significant progress on the long-term success of its business. When I asked about the personal data, they shared the customer is in the driver's seat and providing choice along the way. I'm Roman Blogan, KPRC2 News.
All right, so that's the news story about 23andMe, and of course, as the expert said, any company in informatics has a big to do when it comes to safeguarding data. But we all collectively, as a business community, have to understand how data protection works. And if you know somebody in cybersecurity, it might behoove you to actually talk to them to come up with the cybersecurity plan to protect your data, or just to kind of test, if you're a small business, kind of like the security of the information that you have on file. So let me ask you this. The CEO who just stepped down from 23andMe is seeking to put together a bid to take the company back and to own it again. It may happen, it may not. But would you trust her moving forward in operating the company in a way that's beneficial? Would you trust her with your data? I want to know in the comments if that's something that you would do. If you think that you could trust her with your data, let me know. I'm looking forward to reading the responses to this as time goes on. So look, your data is just as valuable as your DNA, and you don't want to just hand it out to anyone, who has it. So here's my encouragement to you. I want you to take action on, if you're a 23andMe customer, go on, log in. I just went through all the steps in this video on how to delete your data. If you are kind of tuning in late right now, you can go back and then see how I did it. I stepped you through it. And I want to encourage you to really think about where you're putting your data, like who you're signing up with, what's their data policy. Be very, very strict about just handing over your data. Be very, very careful with that. All right. Well, I appreciate you watching this video. Thank you for tuning in. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with 23andMe. I will be following this company to see who's going to buy it and to see what the effects of them buying it will be, both on customer data. And here's the thing. They're going to come out and their first statement is going to be, mark my words, because I might clip this and play this in the future show. Their first statement is going to be, we value data security very highly. Our number one priority is protecting all of our customers' data and genetic information. That's going to be the first line or two in the sentence when whether the former CEO comes back and buys it, or whether it's a new company, they're going to promise about the security of your information. But who knows how many millions of people have already deleted the data there? I'm not quite sure. So anyways, safeguard your data. Don't be too hasty. Make sure you read, take your time online. Don't just start clicking everywhere. And I know that sometimes in generations, people just like to click here, click there, click there. They click the box without reading. And I get why, but I'm not sure it's necessarily worth it. So take your time, know where you're putting your data, and you're more likely to be secure. Until next time, if you don't go about doing and handling your business, you're going to be doing the business of someone else. Don't forget, in the next clip is going to have an outro to the show. And what I want you to do is I want you to click it, because I did a podcast with a security expert, a cybersecurity expert. I want you to watch. So if you've already gotten down to this point in the show, I want you to be able to watch that interview with the cybersecurity expert, because she step by step breaks down what you have to do as a business owner to secure your customers' data, and that conversation, how you can be successful with it. All right, I'm Micah, and I'm out of here. Peace.